Hello everybody, here's your WeatherCast America Quickcast for May 14th, 2025. As you can see, I'm not in my normal studio setup, but I wanted to get out this Quickcast, especially with important new updates here of severe weather and the increased severe weather chances over the next few days. In this forecast, we're going to detail the next widespread severe weather sequence that will affect a large portion of the eastern continental United States later this week and over the weekend. And now that we're in the time frame of the short-range models, we're getting a clearer picture of the severe weather potential going into this weekend. So let's get into it. Here's a look at the Storm Prediction Center's severe outlook for Wednesday, May 14th. The Storm Prediction Center outlines a slight risk, level 2 out of 5, for parts of the northern plains from Nebraska up into North Dakota. The primary threats will be damaging winds and also some very large hail, but the SPC does note the highest tornado probabilities in central Nebraska, with a 5% tornado risk for places like North Platte, Kearney, up through O'Neill, Nebraska. A wider 2% tornado risk includes areas like Omaha up through Sioux City and even into southwest Minnesota overnight, up through areas in central North Dakota around Bismarck. As the low deepens and moves into Minnesota during the day on Thursday, we'll watch for an increased potential of all hazards severe threat for the Great Lakes, with a more conditional risk extending down into the Ohio Valley. As of this recording on Wednesday afternoon, because things could change and new model data with inputs from new soundings, the Storm Prediction Center currently has an enhanced risk, level 3 out of 5, for much of Wisconsin through northeast Illinois, including Chicago, into northern Indiana and southwest Michigan, and even into a very extreme northwest corner of Ohio on the latest SPC update. Depending on new data, this could expand a little, and also wouldn't be totally shocked if a moderate risk is issued for part of this area, especially if models continue to trend upward. A broader slight risk, level 2 out of 5, extends from the UP of Michigan, covering eastern Michigan, including the Detroit metro down through Ohio, Indiana, and into the Ohio Valley. The latest SPC update extends that slight risk into the mid-Mississippi Valley of southeast Missouri and western Kentucky. Down there, the risk is more conditional despite strong low-level moisture, directional and speed wind shear, and ample amounts of convective available potential energy CAPE. The Ohio Valley is expected to have a much stronger cap in place. The strong cap will limit storm development, but at the same time, it also means that if any storm does break through that cap, there's a lot of ingredients for severe storms, and that cap will lead to more isolated, discrete storm development. So that further increases an all-hazards severe risk for any storms that do break that cap. Looking at the HRRR runs, one of the short-range convective allowing models, we can see an arc of storms developing in southeast Minnesota tomorrow afternoon and quickly intensifying as it crosses into southwest Wisconsin, and then from there working north and east. Especially if this arc of storms can stay more discrete, that would further increase the tornado risk in this region. And even if they cluster earlier, there's still an all-hazards threat for a lot of Wisconsin on Thursday. In a similar setup, but a different location to the Easter Sunday severe outbreak, a fast-moving arc of storms with embedded areas of rotation could propagate a QLCS tornado threat through much of Wisconsin, especially the south and western sides of Wisconsin. We'll also need to watch that southern flank of the arc of storms, where cells on that end could be more discrete and have plenty of favorable environment and less competition to develop a more mature supercellular characteristic. And if that progression of cells along and ahead of the surging front slows down a bit, that could also increase the probability of an all-hazards threat. As we saw back on that Easter Sunday severe event, the fast forward progress of the arc of cells along that front largely prevented those cells from developing and fully maturing updrafts. Compared to that event, this surface low seems to be a little bit deeper and stronger upper-level diffluence at the 500 millibar level, and also stronger low-level shear at the 850 millibar winds. The latest HRRR runs avoid developing an arc of storms down into northern Illinois, but uptrend a little further with development in southwest Michigan and also northern Indiana. That could be a concern as those storms get away from the cooler temperatures of Lake Michigan. Looking at the comparison with the NAM 3K model, the NAM is a little bit more bullish on developing storms further into Illinois. If that verifies, that could increase the risk for severe weather across Chicago and points south along the I-57 corridor. If we get convection down into the Ohio Valley, that will likely be later in the evening on Thursday, after the arc of storms already severe is ongoing in Wisconsin into Michigan. And comparing the HRRR and NAM3K models, both show uptrends in that area in southwest Michigan and northern Indiana. If those trends continue, we could see an upgrade by the Storm Prediction Center for a more concentrated area of all hazards severe threat in that region. Looking further at the upper level jet stream winds at the 500 millibar level, we see a strong jet streak near that deepening low in Minnesota and working into Wisconsin. That will greatly help that rapid storm development on Thursday afternoon and aid in helping those storms intensify very quickly. Overall, we see a diffluent pattern, winds spreading out on the lead wave of that jet stream energy, and that diffluence helps increase lift and strengthen the ventilation of storms. Looking at model comparisons of the GFS runs, the GFS does uptrend in these 500 millibar winds and also pushes a nose of higher 500 millibar winds into that northern Indiana region. And especially if that nose pushes a little further into southwest Michigan, that would also strengthen that all hazards threat in that region. As storms move east into late evening and overnight, they should lose some of that all hazards severe threat, but still pose a damaging wind risk and some large hail risk into eastern Michigan. The NAM3K even keeps some of that energy continuing overnight all the way to the east coast by Friday afternoon. That eastward push is also why the Storm Prediction Center now extends a slight risk through northern Ohio. For that region, it will be a late evening into overnight severe risk, so have multiple ways to get those weather warnings in areas of Ohio from Toledo over through the Cleveland metro. The various models are in good alignment that the southern extent of Thursday's risk area will have plenty of CAPE, convective available potential energy. That's the storm booster juice that we've talked about in previous videos. But that CAP will help limit convection down there. Interestingly, I think the newer and currently experimental Rufus model, the RRFS model, does a pretty good job at analyzing the CAPE on Thursday. So I'm interested to analyze it today, and then we can look back in a few days and see how it performed versus the real world tomorrow. Some models have CAPE peaking in Illinois and Indiana in the 4,000 to 5,000 joules per kilogram range, and I think that's a little bit high. Although the RRFS has some of that, it's a lot less expansive, and I believe that's a little more realistic. I think the Rufus model does a good job of depicting that CAPE extension into southwest Wisconsin and wrapping closer to that low pressure in Minnesota. That nose of higher CAPE will contribute to that rapid storm development that we've already talked about. But the Rufus does show that the rapid forward motion of those storms in Wisconsin and that arc of storms along and ahead of that cold front will help to cut off that nose of CAPE as the arc of storms works into north central Wisconsin and then pushing eventually into the UP of Michigan. I think it also does well showing the nose of higher CAPE, showing about 2,000 to 3,000 joules per kilogram pooling up in southwest Michigan. And that, in a compacting warm sector by late Thursday, as the convection works into that area, could increase again that all hazards threat in that part of the country. On Friday, the Storm Prediction Center has recently expanded the severe risk, as we expected on the last forecast video. There's now a level 3 out of 5 enhanced risk for the Ohio Valley from southwest Ohio into southeast Missouri, and a large slighter risk, level 2 out of 5, from central Ohio all the way down through the Arklatex. Especially based off of Thursday's convection and how the positioning of the low stalls over northern Minnesota, a front draped over the Ohio River Valley, and a new shortwave piece of energy entering the picture from western troughing, combined with ample amounts of moisture to the south and east of that front. And with all those pieces that have to come together, it's a little hard right now at this stage to fully depict the storm mode and exact severe risks for Friday. But we'll narrow into that as we go through the day on Thursday and get a better sense of how that low is developing, where it's positioning, and also any ongoing convection overnight Thursday into Friday morning. As of this recording, we're just outside of the window opening for most of the short-range models, but assessing early runs of the NAM3K, that model hints at a mix of storm modes on Friday, initially with supercells in the mid-Mississippi Valley, capable of an all-hazard severe threat, and then organizing potentially into several clusters of convective systems that will work east through the Ohio Valley with damaging wind threat. I wouldn't be surprised to see that risk expansion push further north, maybe into the southern Great Lakes, and also further west into Missouri to cover convective initiation closer to that location of the new shortwave ejecting over the central states. And we're not done there. The models indicate more storms, potentially some severe possible, along and south of that boundary draped over the mid-south over the weekend. Right now, it appears like the weekend, Saturday, will be less concentrated and more widely scattered storms over the region, but some strong to severe storms are still possible over the weekend. Looking further out, it's also important to highlight a developing severe risk in the southern and central plains by early next week. The long-range risk that we highlighted in our forecast video earlier this week has continued to show signs of uptrending to show a classic severe weather setup for the plains. And that could be a significant severe weather event starting Sunday and continuing through early parts of next week. The model trends show a strengthening trough and deepening surface low ejecting from the Intermountain West into the high plains and trailing a cold front, and a very distinct dry line setup along into the west of the I-35 corridor, with a lot of warm, moist, and unstable air out ahead of that dry line. The Storm Prediction Center already highlights a Day 5 risk centered around Oklahoma City for Sunday, and a larger Day 6 risk all the way from the Kansas-Nebraska state line down through the Red River Valley on Monday. And it's still a little far out, but we could still be dealing with this system by Tuesday into Wednesday next week, further north into the east. That would bring a severe weather risk back to the upper Midwest, down into the mid-Mississippi Valley regions. We'll likely have several severe weather live streams over the next 5 to 7 days as we near the peak of severe weather season. So please like and subscribe, click that bell icon to get notifications when we go live. And even if you're not in the region affected by severe weather over the next few days, don't forget to share our stream with friends and family in those risk areas. Subscribing, liking, and sharing all helps the algorithm push this important severe weather content out to more viewers and share possibly life-saving information with a broader audience. We'll stay busy here with severe weather as we continue to expand our severe weather live stream capabilities, producing more forecast videos, all to bring important, reliable, and accurate, informative weather content to our YouTube community.